We've concentrated on the works, but if you think about the pits,
Yes,
and the input from the pits was equally as good.
Yeah.
I mean, the legacies that they left behind with the playing fields and the community centres and things like that was unbelievable.
One of the problems was as well was the number of companies that depended 100% on the steelworks.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when the company closed, if you start a new business, which I did, you got grants.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an existing company and you lost all your work, you never got a penny.
Mm.
I mean, there was one company who used to rewind all the motors. Well, yeah. And they did 100% work for Consign Company. Once the company closed, they lost, well, almost 100% of the work. But they weren't given any grants or retraining to keep the company going. I think there was a lot of people a lot of good people at the company got good jobs. At Teesside, there was a lot of people handpicked from Concert, technical people who went to Teesside. And you know, they were highly thought of, and they just went. There was some left before the company closed, weren't there? They were handpicked and they went to Teesside. Did managerial jobs at Teesside. When I started, nobody would tell me in 1980. But once you got out and people asked you to do jobs, which was like making a cup of tea, simple as that, they didn't have a clue how to do it. And they paid you accordingly. And it amazed us, and you know that from heat treatment. Things we did every day at Consign Company. Never give it a second thought. We got our weekly wage. You went and did it private, and people used to fall over backwards. I mean, not everybody knows. I retired when I was 53 years old. I only retired one bit. I didn't have to work. And that was by doing jobs. Not everything, but a lot of jobs that we learned at the company, skills and experience. And also man skills, people skills that you learn. That was one thing I say to kids now, was respect. And if you didn't respect your elders, you didn't get on. I mean, even in 63, I had to call foreman by the surname. And if you called them by the first name, they shunned you. They shunned you. They wouldn't speak to you.
It was such a multi-skilled area, massive multi-skilled, and I'll guarantee.
We touched upon this last week about how the apprenticeship scheme was very good. You know, one of the guys I spoke to went to Teesside, went to Jarrow to finish his just 1 year here, and finished his apprenticeship with Jarrow. He was disappointed because he knew that the scheme in the works was that much better. You know, he just was a plating on the Jarrow, so it was restricting for him. And he did have this. And often you don't realise that till it's gone in a sense.
Well, it was all the stuff I put back there.
Yeah.
17 years I was there, then I had to make my own way, but it was all there. But I mean, the other thing was that they only kept the best. I mean, we went to technical college for 3 years, and if you failed your exams twice, you were out. It wasn't, you know, we used to say, like, somebody said, those who do, and those who can't teach. Everybody who dropped out at Concert went teacher training. And there was a big intake, you see, you all got jobs. But then some went to higher national, but we went to tech college for 3 years, night classes. And if you failed your exams, you got to resit, and if you failed again, sorry, you're not on the scheme. So at the end of the day, the people who rose to the top were the people who passed all the exams.
It's funny because my background was engineering, okay? But when I left the company, went into social work, but you'd be amazed at the skills that I used from the engineering when I went to social work, as you said. All the different things you could apply, you know, it was just amazing. You know, simple management, things like that, you know, you just adapted. But it was all learned to the time we were at the company, wasn't it? And you just sort of transfer your skills over that. No matter what it was, you could transfer those skills into that area. You know, as
but there was always somebody take you under your wing. You know, I mean, there was a chap who used to work with me, and I used to have a big chip on my shoulder. I worked at the foundry, and I was going to be foundry this and foundry that, and I got transferred to the paper mill. No way I was going to the paper mill. No, I just don't want to go to the paper mill. So I applied for a job for BL. I got a job for British Rail, and the last minute it fell through due to internal promotion down in Coventry. So I came back. Hadn't handed me notice in, thank God. And there was an old broker, well, not an old broker, a broker there who was very well known, very well liked, and he took us to one side one day. You just get the chip off your shoulder and buckle down and you'll make it. And I mean, I was ready to walk away. I was going to, and I did. And I ended up running the paper mill when I was 24 years old, the quality control. And that bloke just took us to one side, didn't shout and yell, just said, look, do what you're good at, keep your nose clean. And I did. And thoroughly enjoyed the next 4 or 5 years working at the paper mill. But there was always somebody there to take you to one side, and all right, you got kicked up the backside and slapped across the ear now and again when you were young, but there was always people there to advise you, as John says, and it sticks there and you think, boy, I did that, I'll pass on to somebody else. And when I started my own business, I started that man skills. I'd never run a business, but as John said, you know, look after him and not be a number and treat him this way, and it worked out to be a success.
The thing is, only as we've all said, the company was not vast. You can pick the brains of what everybody was doing or see what they were doing, and as you said, you put it all there. You've seen a hell of a lot, and that's what you learned off, because such a vast scope, the company.
I mean, when you were serving your time, you did 6 months in different departments, and then you got to cover the whole plant, really.
Yeah.
Which,
that was an excellent idea. You got so much in each department.
I seem to get stuck in the blast furnaces. I must have.
But you must admit, Fred,
must have done something wrong.
It wasn't until you come out of your time that you really started to learn, or you thought you were starting to learn, but you picked all these things up in the background. But when you came to 21, you had to go out and work. You were in the big time then.
In your last year in an apprenticeship, did they not send you out on jobs on your own?
Oh yes.
They'll see what he's capable of doing that. Get out. Want somebody over the blast furnace, get over there, I want you to look at that and sort it out, and that was it. I mean, it wasn't going to be a massive breakdown out like that, but it's something that they knew you were capable of, and right, you're on your own, get it done. And I think that had a hell of a lot. Today, I think the mollycoddled right up.
Of course, yeah.
I'm saying they have the confidence in you, even though you're not out of your time, and say, I want you to go. Set me and Geordie Prescott on. We must have been about 18. And the steel plant opened in 63. We started in 63. Joe Thompson sent me and him into there. He says, go and see such and such. He says, there's a bust pipe on, I think it was the big screen that used to go across the front of the vessel, and where they put the lances on and they fed them in, where it was back out in the road, and also was a pipe had been squashed. I want you to replace that. Well, you just end off at that end, measure it, new fittings on, back in again. But it felt great. 2 of us going doing it on our own. Yeah, well, we weren't. It was 16, 17, because it was 1963, and that's when the plant opened. It hadn't set away. They were firing it. They were experimenting with it, and obviously someone had slammed this pipe straight away, and we had to go and put. Hey, we felt it chuffed us out coming down after doing that.
When I worked in the foundry, there was still knocking around now, the same lad. He was on Benfield course actually, and he was foundry metallurgist, now was technician. And again, I was more than 18, but not much more. And I loved working at the foundry. And he got us to do a costing survey on repairing something rather than remaking it. And you were just told to do it. Go and do it. You had to walk around the works, you had to talk to people, talk to bosses. And it happened to work out. It saved a lot of money. And we've got about my old friend Bill Hume, who was about 5 foot nothing and about 5 foot nothing wide with no neck. And he got this report, and this lad says to me, go along and take that to Bill Hume's office. And I goes, no way. Get along, go and see him. You did it. You present this report. So I walked from the foundry into the main offices. And I mean, the offices were the most beautiful building that should never ever be knocked down, but that's another story. You went up some marble stairs onto the landing, and every door was about a foot thick. And it had an ante-room with a secretary in, and then a big office below behind that. So I was terrified. I was literally shaking. I was only about 18 years old. I went up and nobody opened the door. So I back down the stairs and went back to the foundry. I said to Fred, he's not in. Fred looked at us. He is in. I said, not in. So Fred picked the internal phone up, phoned his secretary. Says, Bill in? Yes, with his lad been along. No, he's in. Get back along there, knock on the door. So I knocked on the door. Secretary, come in, went in. And then Bill, I always remember, he's sitting behind a desk like this about 20 yards away at the other end of his office. And I went up, almost doffed me cap and said, oh, I've been sent along with this report. Yeah, what have you done? Sit down. And I'm sitting there. He says, leave it and I'll be back. And I went back along, and my metallurgist called us in, he sat us down. He said, what were you terrified about? I says, meeting Bill Hume. You just remember, he was 18-year-old one day. And that was it. And that's how they taught you. You weren't let off, you weren't multicoloured, you were told to go and do it. And they made sure you did. And of course, Bill Hume come back and I got praise galore about an 18-year-old. But they would tell you, they would come back to you personally and say, by God, you've done a good job with this, you know. But I was absolutely terrified. I mean, to go in the offices, to go upstairs in that offices, oh God, it was unbelievable when you went upstairs.
Alan, you had respect for those people at
of course
levels.
You did.
You know, if they walked past, you know, you were standing up like.
But you see, he was the same bloke, Bill Hume, joined the League Show about 3 or 4 years later. Oh, how's on? How they remembered you from being 18-year-old. You were 20 odd then, you know, and they remembered you. And I mean, Brian Scott, who became another lad, he's another one. He was another one of my mentors. I mean, he could take you in, he could dress you down to make you feel that tall. But when you did something well, shouted you in, you felt absolutely great when you'd done a good job. And John says you earned respect. And when you left and went somewhere else, you respected people who did good jobs for you. But nowadays,